This is Marshall Shannon with Ministry Design Concepts and Ministry Design Training. I'm a pre-construction navigator, and today we're going to be talking about preparing to build, selecting the right delivery system for your project. Any church construction project is going to have 5 phases in it: preparation, planning, design, construction, and facility management. Today we're going to talk about a part of the process that flows out of and is done during your preparation stage, where you're getting your house in order, and sometimes it's done during the planning stage. But when you're getting your house in order and selecting your team members, both your in-house team members and the industry professionals, you're likely then to select your delivery system. To help you understand the importance of planning well, we've done this chart for you showing the control and cost, how it moves about as you go through the 4 or 5 stages. When you're preparing and planning, designing, and building, at first, like where you are right now, if you're just starting the preparation for a building project, you have full control and you've spent very little or no money to get to this point. But by the time you hire your industry professionals and start the design process and finish the planning process, you're going to be releasing money. So you lose control of your money and you lose control of your decision-making ability, because you've released the decision-making authority to an industry professional. In the selection process, there normally is a fork in the road. Churches ask, do we select the industry professionals first, or do we select the delivery system first? And why does this make a difference in how you move forward and how you proceed? Well, if you choose your delivery system based on someone that industry professional, an architect, a builder, or others, and they happen to use one of the delivery systems that we're going to talk about, but you're picking them because of their character, integrity, craftsmanship, the chemistry, so forth and so on, you've really selected your delivery system by default based on who you feel comfortable with. Or you can decide, as we're going to talk about today, about and explain delivery systems. You then can pick your delivery system and go find out who provides the construction process through that delivery system or with that delivery system, and select from the list of those industry professionals. So it does make a difference in how you proceed. Let me first of all define what a delivery system is. A project delivery system, first off, is relational, meaning the church, the architect, and the builder, the 3 key participants in any construction project for churches, is going to be the church as the owner, the architect is the designer, and the contractor is the builder. And the project delivery system they're set up to define how you are related to each other. How is the architect and the builder related to the church, and how are they related to each other? It then affects and is explained and fleshed out contractually. So you're under contract, the architect with the church, the builder with the church, or the builder and the architect are under contract under the same roof and contracted with the church. You've got different relationships that are fleshed out contractually. And then there's the functional. The functions of the architect and the builder and the church, how you function together, is also a part of the project delivery system. Let me say this to you at the start of this: there is no contractual replacement for the character and craftsmanship of the industry professionals that you contract with, that you hire, that you engage with. So while we're going to go through and explain 3 project delivery systems, I want you to understand they all have a success and failure rate, and that no one delivery system stands by itself supreme over the others. They all have pros and cons. They all are found on the balance sheet of risk versus reward. But you can take what would seem to be the strongest relationship, the strongest contractual agreement, the best functional arrangement with your industry professionals that you can get on paper and binding by the courts, and have it produce a failed project or a poor project because of character and craftsmanship. And so just understand that we can't guarantee you, I don't believe anyone can, that if you use their system, regardless of who you hire, that you're not going to have a poor project or have a failed project or disastrous project. Delivery system selection, I want you to see ahead of time what we're going to be discussing. We're going to talk about design, bid, build. Design build that is architect-led, contractor-led, construction management, agency, at risk, and fourth party. And then a fourth one that we're going to talk about is integrated project design. It's a team approach. So as we go, this is the roadmap to where we're going to go in the next little bit here as we go through helping you determine how to select the right delivery system for your project. Decision-making factors, the question is often asked to me, how do we go about selecting this? So let me just answer this up front. Usually, you're going to select the delivery system that you think best fits your project at the time that you're building as a church. Meaning, you may 3 years ago have built and used one delivery system in one company, and this time you're using a delivery system that's different and a different company. Different players are involved. So your past practices come into play as to what your experiences were like and whether or not you think you ought to try a different company and a different delivery system, sometimes the same company but a different delivery system, hoping to have a successful project. And any number of things can put that into play. Sometimes churches have used the consultants like myself to help them come to some conclusion as to which way they ought to pursue or carry out the process. Sometimes, folks, the funding sources that a lender is having some say in which system you use, and you better find that out. If you're dyed in the wool for a particular lender, bank, then you better make certain that you're not picking a delivery system that they'll stop or won't loan you the money, prohibit your progress. In-house resources. As we look at the delivery systems, different ones take more involvement and skill and abilities out of your staff, both paid and volunteer help in your church. So your in-house resources can have a play in it. Then the last thing, and this is very big, is risk versus reward. One of the strong decision makers in one of the strongest factors in deciding which delivery system to use is understanding the risk that you're taking versus the reward that you'll get. And so that comes in three ways. If you want more knowledge, you're going to have to take on more risk. If you want more control of the project, the design and the construction, you're going to have to take on more risk. But if you balance the risk and you take on more risk, then arguably you're supposed to get more reward, which means savings. So knowing more, controlling more, and getting more of the savings that's generated through the project is balanced out. The more risk you take as to the cost of the project and assuming the cost of the project, the more control you'll have, the more knowledge you have, and the more savings you should get. The less risk you're willing to take, then the less knowledge you're going to have, control of the quality and the equipment and materials and so forth that are put into the building, control of the design, and of course, you may get none of the savings that are generated because the people who took the risk for the cost of the thing, of the project, are going to want to earn and keep the savings. We're going to talk first as we go through this, the design, bid, build, and I want to describe it to you. This is normally called the traditional delivery system in North America. It has been around, some have said, for 150 years. 40 is longer than any of us have been alive. It is estimated that somewhere between 50 to 60% of all commercial projects done in North America use the design, bid, build, delivery system. The process is this. The church will hire an architect. The architect will design the facility. He will administrate the bidding process with the general contractors. He will administrate construction, so he'll come once a month or whatever you contract with him to look at the building to make certain that it's being built according to the design. So he is serving as your agent to serve in your best interest during this process to do this. Then you're going to put it out to bid, and you've got a contractor, general contractor, and he is going to bid on the job. If he wins it, he's going to build it. So this is what a design, bid, build means. Your architect designs it, you put it out to bid, you select one general contractor who is going to hold the contracts with the subcontractors and suppliers, and he is going to build your building, hopefully according to the design as it has been approved by the local authorities and stamped by the architect, and he is going to build it, hand you the keys, warranty it for a year, whatever the law requires in your area, and you'll use the building. There are real pros or advantages to using this design, bid, build, delivery system. The first one is you have competitive bidding with a set of plans. Complete drawings allows for better bids. So understand this, you've got a general contractor who has two sources that he is using to develop his bid. He has his select group of subcontractors, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and site work and so forth, that he'll take your set of plans that your architect has designed, stamped, and got them approved, and they're ready to put out to bid. The general contractor will take that set of plans. He will go to his subcontractors and give them the portion of the plan that directly involves their part, and they give him a price knowing that they're going to probably win the job from the general contractor and be able to do their part of the trade or their part of the project. The second source he uses will be his books or his computer and the software that helps him look at the holes in his process of putting together the bid that he's going to give you in hopes of winning the work. And he has an estimator, and the estimator sits in a room with his computer and his books, and he is trying to estimate as close as he can what this project is going to cost in the areas of trade, meaning the building, that he doesn't have time or doesn't have a subcontractor who's willing, able to give him a price based on the blueprints during the bidding process. So the argument is that the architect is working in behalf of the church and is going to design the building as the church wishes and is going to make the plans as complete in detail as he can, so that the general contractor is not having to guess how something is put together and all the materials that are available. He has a good set of plans, a detailed, complete set of plans to bid on. So now you've got 3, 5, 10, whatever number of GCs, general contractors, bidding on your process, on your plans, on your project, and the argument is you're going to get competitive bids. The second pro of this advantage is checks and balances. The architect is designing and he's giving oversight or accountability to the builder, but also the builder is looking at the sets of plans and he is pointing out things that are incomplete or aberrations, conflicts within the plans, and he is looking at the plans and making submitting change orders, and there's a check and balance that goes on with this where there's accountability, and that's biblical. And to a point, you have that in the design, bid, build, delivery system. Now for the disadvantages or the cons, the pros and cons. Cost estimating. Part of the problem is that when an architect is designing it with the owner and there isn't a way to correctly estimate the true cost of that building when it is going to be put out to bid and built, that a builder is not involved who has skin in the game. In other words, he has to live by the numbers he gives you. And the problem is that the general contractors are not involved in giving any kind of input during design to estimate the cost, the true cost, and without contractor and supplier input for any number of things, where you've got better engineering or options and ways to do it, that you want to continue giving input and that doesn't exist under this system, so that they can correctly estimate it and also make engineering adjustments in the design. Because here's the fact: there's only been two perfect buildings, or two buildings perfectly designed in one boat. God was the architect and the engineer of all three of those, and they were perfectly designed and perfectly engineered. But the minute human beings are involved in it, they're not infallible, they're fallible. And the fact is, from years of history of doing this, we have learned that often buildings are designed by architects without the necessary expertise, either from the architect and his staff or from someone else, an estimator or a builder, and they don't get the cost estimate correct. And when it comes time to bid it out, the bids come back higher, significantly higher, than the budget, the project budget for the building. And so they thought it was going to cost $1 million, and it comes back at $1.3 million. Secondly, without the contractor and the suppliers having input during design, it can affect the cost of it. But to do some engineering, value engineering, during the design place to get input into different ways to approach it. It helps to have a builder on board during the design, because he is the guy that is actually putting the building together, and the suppliers. So I'll give you an example that will help you. Just down the road from our home here in Greenville in Greer, South Carolina, is the BMW plant. And when I pastored for years and that plant was brought to Greer, I ended up with a number of men and women who were employed by the BMW plant. Some of them were involved on the design aspect of the cars and went to Europe, spent weeks there, months there, and they were on the design team. But some of those design team people were the folks who were on the assembly lines and the supply lines, and they worked together. Have the designer of the particular car, I think it was the X5 that was being done in the late 90s, but nonetheless, the guys on the floor and the suppliers, the fabricators, the builders, the suppliers of the materials and equipment, and the designers of the car had to collaborate together. And if they didn't, they ran into the same problems you have with this delivery system. And so you want their input. Cost effectiveness, doing it to maximizing the effectiveness for money's sake, both for the cost of the building while you build it. But if you have looked at any charts, and in some of my other webinars I've shown this to you, that in a 40-year life cycle of a building, the construction and the fees for design and construction that you pay the industry professionals are a small slice of pie. the biggest slice of the pie is taken up with the life cycle, meaning the insurance, the custodial, the maintenance, repairs, insurance, so forth and so on, and caring for the building over the next 40 years. That's 70 to 71% by the research that's been done of the overall cost of a building has been the life cycle, the maintenance and repair and renovation and the insurance and the custodial and on you go of the building. The finance charge for borrowing money to build and the cost of building the building, including the design and construction fees that your industry professionals are paid, is a small slice of the pie. And so if you're not looking at the life cycle cost and how well something you're building is going to last, there's a concern. Then the truth of the matter is, when you've got an architect saying one thing and a builder saying another, and they become adversarial, they become opposed with each other, there's a conflict between the industry professionals, the church is caught in the middle not knowing who to believe. Do you believe the architect and engineers or the builder and the suppliers? And they may have completely different ways of looking at it. Having family and pastor guys and work for two different national church builders, I can tell you that I've had guys look and tell an architect, I can't build it like you just designed it. It doesn't fit together. Let me show you how I know it can go together. So you're having to work within the knowledge base and experience of the builder and the architect and engineers, and sometimes the church looks at this and doesn't know what to do with it. Then there's change orders. Change orders come from one of three sources: the government, local government, the church, which is where the largest number and most expensive change orders typically come from the church, and then aberrations in the architect and engineers where they had a mistake or an overlap or a conflict or an invasion of the plumbing and the electrical ended up taking up the exact same cubic square inches or cubic square feet, and you've got a change order that comes about to move them around. Now that's a typical one that has been a part of the industry, but not a very expensive one, but there are other ones. So if you don't have all the players involved during the preparation, planning, and design, then you get to the construction and you have these negative parts here. Here are some possible solutions. If you believe that the best fit for you is the design, bid, build, delivery system, then here are possible ways for you to fix or counteract or solve the perceived disadvantages or cons. First one is to create a team environment. The contractor is involved during design. You can pre-select one and negotiate a fee with him. You can invite several, and I've done this as a pastor, where we invited several and gave them the opportunity to bid on it. Part of the invitation to bid on a select number of GCs, 2 or 3 or 4, was that they had to help you by giving input to the design cost. So you were doing this back at the master planning, and then at 30%, 50%, they were helping you make certain that you were within budget. And if one of the downfalls of the design, bid, build, delivery system is that the plans, when put out to bid, come back well over the expected or set budget for the building and the site work, then you can fix that by involving the builders during the design phase. Possible technical solution is new software that has come out in the last several years that is not 2D design, which has been around on paper and on computer for years, but is 3D design, so that the architect and the builder and the estimator for the architect and for the builder can dissect. He can peel back the skin of the building outside and inside and see everything as it literally is going to look. It's 3D. And that is a possible solution where architects are hiring building estimators to come in and use the software and to use the tools that the builders use in order to estimate it correctly. That's one possible technological solution that has come into play that may change be changing the industry as we speak. Another solution to this is, if you're going to use this, is to use a navigator or a project consultant like myself to help pull all this together, to take the load off you as the church leaders and put it on I call it a temporary staff member who comes in and helps you and will pay for himself many times over, saving you money, ministry, and momentum to get your project built. So there are some possible solutions you can use to overcome the perceived disadvantages of this system. A project manager is another way. Now, the difference between a navigator and a consultant and a project manager is that I'm talking about, as a project manager, a guy who maybe is a general contractor himself. You pull him out of his business and out of building himself, put him on site during construction. So when they come, they're in the bidding process and during the construction process, you've got a general contractor, and I've seen this done by one of my preacher friends who had a good-sized project. It was $3.5–4 million project, and he talked one of his general one of his general contractors in his church, gave up his salary for the year in his business, came on and served his church, and yes, he took less money, I think half, but nonetheless, he was willing to do it to help his church, and he held the builder and the architect accountable to make certain that the builder used the materials and equipment that was specified in the contract, in the bidding process, in the specs, and they got the building that they were supposed to get, because he held the builder's feet to the fire, so to speak. And I think they paid the guy $75,000 for the year for the 12 months, and he saved the church around $600,000. So if your project's big enough and would warrant that, and you have someone who's willing and able to do that, I'm not talking about Johnny of all trades, master of none, I'm talking about someone who is willing to do this, that understands the process. So a construction manager, a project manager that would be able to do that. I've only seen it done the one time, but it is a possible solution to use someone like myself, pre-construction, and someone like a project manager that knows the ins and outs and understands every aspect of construction, that can serve as your advocate during construction. The second one is the design build project delivery system, and we're going to describe it here. It's been described as the master builder delivery system for years, meaning for, as one guy said, for millenniums, in other words, for thousands of years before the design bid build process was put into play. You had this system, the master builder, where the guy who designed it and the guy who built it was the same company, the same people. So that is one way. It's arguably the oldest system, and we've now returned to that since the 1970s, and it's become very popular again. It was estimated in 2010 by one of the firms who tracks this in the construction industry that 40% of all commercial projects in North America were design build. And the reason is that it was formed in the 1970s, and became very popular again, was because of the perceived solution to design build, bid build. It is an effort to bring about solutions through creating or returning to a delivery system that was used for thousands of years to build things. Now, this is where the architect and the builder are in the same company, and they are one is working for the other, and usually I've not seen them in a partnership carrying this out. Since the 1970s, the effort to fix the perceived problems with the design bid build project delivery system is an effort, and here's the process. The architect and builder are under one contract. They perform together from the start. So all the things that we talked about with design bid build, the traditional way, the master builder delivery system is an effort to solve those problems and strengthen it. And you have it done in two ways. The architect hires the builder, and the builder works for the architect, or the builder is builder led, which is most common, and the architect works for the builder. The pros of this is that there's collaboration between the architect and the builder from the very start. So all the deficiencies we've just discussed with design bid build we're hopefully solving those with this delivery system. One party is responsible. It solves the squabbling or the conflict between the arguing about the builder and the architect, because they're the same company. They have to solve their own problems in-house. So it takes that burden off the church. You have one person responsible. They designed it, built it. If it's not right, they got to fix it. So that's the advantage to this. Cost control, staying within a budget. So it keeps you from having building put out to bid and it comes back too expensive. Usually earlier in the process of design, you can get a guaranteed maximum price or a fixed price for that building that the company is going to live by and produce that building as you're designing it. And so that is a help. Designer and fabricator input. So you've got the builder and the architect working together to make that happen. Those are good things. Then there's disadvantages to this. So as we've used it through the years, maybe everyone is just going back and saying, oh, that's why we went back to what we call the traditional, where you design it and you bid it out to GCs and build it, was because of these disadvantages that have come about as we've used this project delivery system. As I said earlier, none of these are perfect because people are involved in it. The first disadvantage is design and construction control. When you use a design build, it is argued that you are giving up the design process to the builder, which is the vast majority. I don't know what percentage, but I would imagine it's way up above 50%, if not above 80% of design build firms are builder led. Now, I have no facts or data in front of me, so if I'm wrong, just please forgive me. But that's what I've seen. That's my experience. I am speaking from that. And you're having the builder control the design, what materials, what quality, and the scope and so forth, the quality of your design, and even the design not being fully completed because he's both the builder and the designer. So you're giving up control of not only your money during construction and the construction, because you're not doing it yourself, but you're giving it up during design when normally the architect, if he's working just for you, is designing that building for your best interest to get the best price and the most completely designed, detailed building, and then overseeing the construction of it, giving some measure of visits there to make certain it's built according to the design, the plans as they are designed. Quality control and life cycle loss. One of the issues that comes about, and I have friends who've worked for a design builder for many years and more than one, and they've said, when you're given a fixed price early in the design process and early in this whole process, you may be forced to or feel pressured that the quality control and the life cycle loss means that you're using less quality materials and equipment, what you're putting and how you're building the building, which ends up not lasting as well or serving as well or saving you as much money with economics with your heating and cooling and maintenance and custodial. And so you may be giving up the quality of your design or your building through this because they're controlling the design as well as the construction, and your knowledge of what's going in there is not as strong. Now, having said that, I'm not telling you not to use design build or the design bid build process. I'm telling you that here are the perceived weaknesses in what has been taught for years and proven for years. Cost control through quality, not competition. And so instead of controlling the cost by competing to get better prices, they're reducing the cost of this building to put more money in the builder's pocket, in this design build firm's pocket, by reducing the quality of the material. And if you, the owner, don't know the difference, then that's a problem. For instance, I'll give you one example here quickly, and that is in many of your classrooms, you'll have a suspended ceiling, and that suspended ceiling has tiles in it that sit on a frame, and you've got 2x4 and 2x2. I've been taught by project managers, by construction guys and suppliers, that you could walk into a supply store and buy a 2x4 ceiling tile for a suspended ceiling, and you might spend, and these prices were given to me, they might be different now, but you could spend $45 or $55, or you could spend $150 or $160, depending upon the specs. They may look somewhat the same, but they're not. Well, if you're a builder who is doing design build process, there's a real temptation to put the $45 one in there, not the $145 one, because you're going to make more money, and so you're watching your bottom line. Here's the problem. They're tempted to serve their own interest ahead of the church's. You need an advocate to help you with that. So your interest, whose interest is being served through the design and construction under a design build delivery system. Limited design detail. Sometimes they won't have to go into all of the architectural design, because the builder's engineers will provide shop drawings of how they're going to interpret the design the architect has done. Because they're under the same roof, they don't spend architect time and money to do a full set of details. They just let the builder will provide his own shop drawings of how he's going to make it happen for his subcontractors to build it, or the subcontractors are providing the shop drawings for it. So those are some of the perceived or possible negatives or disadvantages or cons to design build delivery system, possible solutions to this. So if you're going to use this and you want to avoid some of the perceived cons, negatives, disadvantages, you get an owner's representative to work with the design builder who understands construction, kind of like what I talked about, a navigator, project consultant, and a project manager who understands preparation, planning, and design, and also understands construction. So you've got a pre-construction navigator and a construction manager who goes in, and that's extra fees and extra money to make certain that you get the building that you want within the dollar amount. So it's really the quality and size, as opposed to it going over budget. Owner representative. We'll talk about construction management, and it's seen as the owner representative. We're the traditional, and then the master build. This is the owner representative. It was created in the 70s to solve the perceived problems with the first two delivery systems. And it was an offset perceived, to offset the perceived weaknesses of the design build bid and design build delivery systems. There are three that we're going to talk about. The first one is pure agency. Now listen closely, because the way that we're going to solve the perceived problems with the other two is through these three ways. All right. Here, the pure agency construction management delivery system is where you manage the project for the church. So the GC, and I think most every state that allows construction management requires that the construction manager be a licensed general contractor and qualified to do your project. So this GC is now going to be a construction manager, and he is going to manage the project for the church. Okay, so a licensed construction manager is going to manage the project for the church. The difference is the subcontractors under the general contractor and the other two delivery systems, they are contracted with the GC, with the general contractor. But now the construction manager is managing and has a contract with the builder and the subcontractors are contracted directly with the church. So you've got a manager who is managing the project as though he were the GC, but the contracts are directly with the church. There is a reason why you do it this way, and here are the pros. Pure agency pros is that it's a church-driven design where the construction manager often is hired before the designer, brings in designers, and works through it to make certain that the quality and the input of a builder is in place and helping to keep the design within budget, to make certain that the design has the quality materials and supplies that the owner wishes to have in the building. And it's a church-driven design, not a builder-driven design. Secondly, there's early budgeting to help you design within budget. What happens sometimes in the design bid build, the first one, is that the architect hears the church say, we want these many classrooms, this big of an auditorium, and he can only design it to the size that the owner is telling him that he wants. He can only cut the quality of that building to a certain point to get it as big and to accommodate as many ministries as the church wants. And so often an architect is put under the pressure of trying to give the church what it wants, but having to tell it, you can't afford that, that's too big. And so he can only go so far with the scope or the size of the building, with the quality trying to stay within the price. It is a difficult thing. So early budgeting means that you've got a builder and an architect and engineers and maybe subcontractors who've been brought into this in order to help you budget early, to put real prices to what's being designed to help you. So it keeps you from designing something and then going and finding out what it's going to cost. You're doing it while it's happening. So there's cost control. Another advantage is reduced change orders during construction. If you have a lot of eyeballs looking at this, you've got a better chance to identify aberrations in the plans that are conflicts, as we talked about, code violations, and they're analyzing the blueprints, trying to get them as perfected as human beings can get it perfected, so that the government doesn't make you make changes, or you catch architects' human error, or you have something that's going to be too expensive. And the next thing is, it helps the church to be helped during the design process to set priorities and determine what they want, and to go through the process so that's the largest source of change orders is the church. So we want to help you as a navigator, we want to help you during the design process to decide what you want, see it, and help you see it like it's going to be, so you don't have a bunch of change orders. It has been stated, and again, I don't have hard data for this, just what the industry professionals tell me, $1 million building in the United States, when it's put out to bid, ends up costing $1.1 million. I've had some folks tell me as high as 1.3. I know in my exposure and experience of dealing with this with two different national church builders, that we've had to help churches where the plans came back well over 30% over the project budget for the project. And so we want to help you with this. Market competitiveness. Because you're dealing with subcontractors and suppliers, you can go thoroughly shop it while it's in design, and then of course during the bidding process, the construction manager is going to put the plans out to bid on behalf of the church, and is going to go and get as many bids as he can, and then qualify them and give the church opportunity to say, yes, we want this subcontractor for this trade and this craftsman for this part of the discipline, and it's giving control of the process to the church. That's a real plus. So knowledge, control, and savings are given to the church. Knowledge of how it's designed and what's in the building, control of what goes into the building, and 100% savings during construction. Under the other two processes, the builder has assumed the cost of the building and taken the risk of it being costing more than what he has said he's willing to build it for. And if he can generate savings, then he gets to keep it. But under construction management, because the contracts are with the individual subcontractors, now this builder turns around, and because he's managing it on behalf of the church, just as he would have managed it for himself had he held all the contracts and getting the money. Now the general construction manager is going to turn those savings over to the church. So you can understand the track record that I have seen by one national church builder that was a construction manager that used pure agency. In 20 years of building churches, if my memory serves me correct, their record showed that they had only gone over the low bids that were collected as they took all the bids from the subcontractors, plus their markup, the cost of the fees charged by the construction manager. They'd only exceeded that three times. The rest of the time, they were at the low bids, or 5% to 10%, and I've seen as much as 22% under the low bids. So they were able to generate through the process all these different ways to save the church money, and they turned 100% of that savings over to the church. And so the reason why is that the owners, in this case the churches, wanted to manage the project through a construction manager so they could keep control of the project, know fully what's going on, and get all the savings. If pure agency does that, here's another pro. It's an open book because the CM, construction manager, is working with the church, and all the contracts are with the subcontractors in the church. The church has control over when the money is paid to the subcontractors and material and suppliers. They have full knowledge of what it's cost. It's an open book system, so you know exactly what everybody is being paid, as far into the subcontractors as you can see, and suppliers. There is an open design. During the design process, it's open for you to know exactly what's there. Everyone is serving your best interest, and you get 100% of the savings. It reduces the conflict of interest that a builder has when he is serving his interests to protect himself and to generate additional revenues for himself. It removes that conflict. He now is serving fully the interest of the owner. He's getting paid his fee regardless of how much money he saves you. He's going to make a set amount of money as the fees. At least that's the way that I've seen it work. And so that he is serving the church's best interest, knowing that he has to live off whatever his fees are. You know what he's being paid exactly based on the low bids and the general conditions, the cost of being on site to make it happen, just like a general contractor. Now, there are some negatives here. The final cost of the project rests with the church. So if it came back that it was supposed to cost $1 million and it cost $1,030,000, the church has to pay the additional $30,000. No guaranteed maximum price. You're taking the risk as the church under pure agency construction management. You're saying if it costs more, so we can't save money through this below the price it's supposed to cost as we put all the bids together, that we're going to pay it. So there's no guaranteed maximum price. Cost overruns are the churches. That's what this means. If it costs more than the set price as you put together everything, then you pay it. So if the government comes back or something else, a guy you were going to use goes out of business, for some reason it costs you more money, and there's all kinds of reasons why it would, you have to pay that addition. The warranty that you have is not with the general contractor, it's not with the construction manager, it's with the subcontractors. That's who did the work, and so the warranty is guaranteed by the subcontractor if something goes wrong. Now that can get complicated sometimes, I think. During the warranty period, when you have a problem and one sub says, well, it wasn't my part of the work that did it, this other subcontractor caused it, and it made mine go bad. And so, again, you can have conflict. Be aware that your construction manager needs to step up to the plate, negotiate the warranty, settle the conflicts, and help you through the process. But legally, as I understand it, the warranties are provided by the subcontractors who did the work and probably supplied the materials and equipment in your project, and they guarantee it. That can be perceived as a negative. The positive to that is that if you're doing the other two processes and the builder goes belly up, he goes out of business, he can't finish the project, something happens to him, your whole project is put at risk because another builder's got to come in, assume the work that the previous GC did, and finish the project. It's a nightmare. To put it simply, it's a nightmare. You don't want that happening. I don't know how often it happens, but if it does happen to you, you're unfortunate to have that happen. Or God does a James chapter 1 to you, and he makes you face that life's testing time by your GC in the middle of the building, goes belly up and can't finish it for some reason. You either solve that problem through having insurance, where you're going to pay 2 to 3%, where they guarantee the work that if the general contractor fails, the insurance company will come in and finish building the building for you. The other way to do it, to solve that, is to do the construction management pure agency, and if a GC goes belly up during the time, then one of the disadvantages of the single GC is that all you're out is that one sub, not the whole building. And I have seen where you went and got another subcontractor to finish his part of the work and actually save money, or did it for the same amount of money, and it didn't cost the church any extra money. But boy, I tell you, the potential is there for it, particularly if you have several not able to honor their contracts. There's a heavier workload on the church leaders. When you use construction management and the contracts are with all the subcontractors and suppliers, you're going to have a representative from the church readily available to make decisions as you go. It is arguably a negative. Is it's going to cause you to be more involved. Well, you do want to be more involved to keep control of knowledge, control of your money, and to gain all the savings. You're earning it through working a little harder. Your investment in it can be more. Construction management, as we talked about, there's agency, pure agency, at risk, and fourth party. Next is at risk. At risk provides a guaranteed maximum price. This time, though, your construction manager, who is giving you a fixed price, usually after the bid's put out, he'll add a percentage to the bidding because he's going to assume risk for the building not costing more than a certain dollar amount. And he'll split the savings that are generated through good management of your project. He is responsible for any cost overrun. So if that building costs $30,000 more than the $1 million, the CM is going to eat it. It changes the relationship between the construction manager and the church when you do this. So here are some advantages, pros, benefits from this. Risk is reduced for the church. If you've got a great deal of fear in yourself or your committee, your leadership of your church, or in your environment, in your community, that buildings are always costing more than what the bids come back, then you can risk is reduced for the church by knowing that they're only going to have this amount of money. Shared savings still available, maybe 50-50 or 90-10 or 80-20. You've got to negotiate that with the construction manager. Some of the cons, and of course you have the other benefits that we've already listed for pure agency. Some of those are the pros. Here are the cons. The disadvantages: less savings than pure agency. It changes the dynamics of the construction management church relationship. Because why? The CM is concerned about risk taking. Now he is watching out for his interest and the church's. So you're giving up some of that conflict of interest in order to get yourself a guaranteed maximum price. The CM has to watch out for his own interest. The church has less input on the subcontractor selection, because the contractor is qualifying that sub not just for himself, for the church, but now for himself because he's at risk. Another disadvantage is contingency control rests with the CM. Every project should have contingency money. They're reserve funds for unexpected expenditures. I talk about this in other webinars that are every project has, and the CM takes control of those funds to handle those unexpected funds. It's a part of the guaranteed maximum price of the contingencies. Change orders can be on top of the guaranteed maximum price. Church, understand that if you change your mind about something during construction, that's on top of the guaranteed maximum price, and you're going to have to pay extra money. Then there is fourth party. Fourth party is the owner's representative and the players that are involved, the participants in the process. You have the church as the owner, the architect is the designer, the builder is the contractor, and the construction manager. He is not going to be managing it as he does under at risk and pure agency. He is going to work in the church's behalf to work with the architect and the builder, hopefully, and to produce a smooth project that stays within budget, that is correctly designed and correctly built, and to please the church. In big projects, normally not church projects, but in really large, complex projects, owners will hire a construction manager, fourth party, and he is there to serve in certain ways. He serves as the church's advocate, just like pure agency and at risk. He is concerned primarily about the well-being of the church. Success is defined when the church wins. So again, he is still serving solely the interest of the church, but he is having to take care of the architect and the builder as well, because he doesn't want the relationships to break down. So he serves as a translator to deal with the challenges that come with any building project, that reduces the amount of misunderstandings, that helps with conflict resolution. Some of the negatives to a construction management fourth-party delivery system is the potential for added cost, but services may pay for themselves. So there is potential for added cost. He has a fee that goes along and on top of the designers, the architect, engineers, and all the other players that may be a part of the design, the consultants, interior designer, audiovisual lighting, acoustical designers. On top of that, you've got a fourth-party construction manager. But his services may pay for themselves. In other words, you pay him a fee and he saves you his fee and then some by managing the project and helping you get and succeed with the project that you wanted. In other words, you're satisfied and happy with it when it's completed. A fourth-party construction manager on larger projects, complex projects, can help you accomplish this. Potential for adversarial atmosphere. In other words, if he is only there to justify his fee by beating down the architect, the builder, the subs, the other designers and suppliers, and so forth, he can create a real atmosphere of tension, distrust, or just make it very uncomfortable, and it doesn't work as well. So if he takes the wrong posture toward the architect, the builders, and the other participants, it has real potential for adversarial atmosphere that you don't want. Remember this: you should get more than brick and mortar when you build. Your ministry to make disciples as a church is going on while you're having contact with people you might never come in contact with except through a building project. And so you want this to be a good experience because you're touching souls for Jesus. Potential for isolation instead of teamwork. In other words, if the fourth-party construction manager wants to hinder or restrict the input or the communication of the architect and the builder with you, the church, because he wants them to go through him and everything is filtered through him, that can really cause problems, and you don't want that to happen. There was a fourth thing that I wanted to talk to you about and tell you about because it's fairly new to the church industry, and that's the integrated project design or integrated project delivery system or team approach. And it's a fairly new approach to churches. Key project participants function as a team from the start of the project. And so there are benefits that come with this. When they agree to work together in the interest of the church, all knowing they're going to be paid, they put aside themselves, work with integrity, each caring for the interest of the church, but your church, you're making certain that all the industry professionals are treated fairly, they're paid their fees, and it brings accountability, balance, and so forth to it. You have collaboration from the very start to produce a quality project. So you take any of the three systems, delivery systems that we have discussed here today, and you bring them together to from the very beginning to function as a team. All the players, you're going to get the knowledge, savings, and control. The owner will. Budgeting and cost estimating, reduce cost overruns, reduce change orders. The design, you know what's going on, you get the savings, and you keep control of the design, of the quality of it, the size of it, and it is a help to you. That if you do this, you're going to get the benefits of having everyone work together on the front end to keep the project online in size, quality, and cost. To help the church get what it wants, consider bringing all the players. And all the players is more than the architect and the builder. It includes the engineers, it includes the other designers, interior designer, landscape architects, it includes audiovisual lighting and acoustical engineers, and sometimes those guys are designers and fabricators in the same company. That's another discussion to come to. But you have the opportunity to use this in order to produce a project that is pleasant and profitable and practical and within the price that you have set, and for it to be a process where you see much done to move forward the cause of Christ, and you've had an impact in people's lives for eternity, and it makes you have a good experience that furthers your willingness to do it again. So as your ministry grows and you want to build again, that you've learned something through the process, and maybe you built some relationships that will enable you to go back and work together again using the integrated project design delivery system, this team approach, where there's all these benefits by having their input, their estimating, their design ideas, their value engineering as you go through, letting them do. It creates balance in the accountability and responsibility and the risk and reward. I'm Marshall Shannon with your pre-construction navigator with ministry design training and ministry design concepts. You can reach us at our office at 864-977-1632 or on my cell phone at 864-553-2070. We're more than happy to talk with you to serve as your pre-construction navigator. My wife is an interior designer that has served churches for a good number of decades now. We would love the opportunity to help you in that way.